Hi, I'm Rohit Chabria. I'm an electronic security specialist. Today I'm going to speak to you about CCTV. More importantly, a recent notification about CCTV which the Mumbai police has issued, and this notification was available for review in the Times of India. What they have said basically is that all private establishments, yes, the Mumbai police has mandated that all private establishments must have CCTV outside their premises so that they can help the Mumbai police thwart crime. So what are private establishments? Well, they refer to schools, hospitals, banks, NBFCs, retail outlets, restaurants, housing societies, and pretty much every establishment that you can think of. Each of these establishments need to have CCTV put outside their premises in such a way that at least 15 meters of area is covered. The owners of the establishment need to ensure that there's 15 days of footage available. The footage must be clear. They also have to ensure that the system is working at all times. And not only that, each owner of these establishments or the stakeholders, as they may be, must make this footage available to the Mumbai police on demand. So we need to understand the nuances of this notification. At the very outset, I'd like to clarify before we get into this that I am not a legal expert. I'm only giving you my private opinion on what I make out from this notification and how the various components of this notification must be broken down and reviewed. So first and foremost, let's understand about this notification in the timeline. It was actually issued a few months ago in November, and it's been reiterated now, and it said it comes into force with immediate effect. Exactly how soon they're going to start enforcing non-compliance, I have no idea. How long this notification is going to last for, they're not clear about that either. They said until such time they choose to revoke it. So at this point of time, as a citizen of Mumbai, you're actually obligated that if your society or shop or restaurant or office or any premises is on the road, you're obligated to put up CCTV systems in a way as mandated by this notification. There's two parts to it. One, of course, is compliance, and the second is efficacy. So the problem with this notification is that typically compliance and efficacy have a glaring gap, and that is where the problem arises. How do we actually bridge this gap? So I'm going to break down this notification and tackle each point at a time to see if we can figure out how this gap needs to be bridged. So the first thing that this notification mandates is 50 meters. 50 meters could mean one side, but 50 meters could also mean two sides. So that's something that we need to figure out, whether you want to cover one side or both sides outside your premises. The next thing that they have mandated is that it needs to be 15 days of footage needs to be available. Well, typically CCTV systems record either in motion, that's when there is motion and only that time it's recorded, and it can also record continuously. So there's no clarification on whether there needs to be only motion recorded or it needs to be in continuous motion. Now, in case it needs to be motion recorded, motion recording also has different sensitivities. So if you set the sensitivity too low, you may not get the motion that is required. You set it too high and you might get continuous motion, which means that a lot of hard disk space is wasted. So you need to figure out how to solve that problem, and you need an expert on board for that. The third thing that they have said is the footage needs to be clear. Now, by itself, the word clear is a subjective word. Even in CCTV technology, although analog systems are fairly clear, IP technology gives clearer images, as I've said in many of my videos in the past. But the word being subjective, there's no mandate as to what kind of technology should be used, just that the image must be clear. Clear also could indicate clear in the day, clear in the night, because different types of cameras do not work as well in the night as, say, some other cameras do. For example, some cameras have got a lesser amount of infrared illuminators, so they don't have the efficacy that is desired. Some of them have great infrared illumination, but the images are in black and white. The more you spend on cameras, you get ultra low light cameras which work in color even in superb, like really low light conditions. So that again makes it ambiguous. Which technology are you going to be using to ensure you have clear images, so to say. A very important part of this notification, which I believe is probably the most important part, is the police have mandated that your systems always need to be working. That's a really difficult one to understand, interpret, and even implement, because who's going to implement that? For example, in a housing society, typically people have preventive maintenance visits which are once every 3 months. So are you, as a housing society stakeholder, going to pay your vendor to come once a month or once a week, check daily even? What if there's an incident 4 days ago and the cameras have stopped working after that? Who's going to be held responsible for that? Do you want to invest in an automated health monitoring software? If not, have someone check it regularly, wherein they could falter and may not do their job regularly as human error is obviously a part of this. It can become a part of this as well. The next part says you need to provide backup to the police every time there is an incident. So if there's an incident outside your premises, it could be a shop, restaurant, whatever, the police will come barging in and say, hey, you need to give us footage. Firstly, are you going to be available at that time? Secondly, are your staff trained to give that footage to the police? Thirdly, who's going to pay for the media device that you need to give that footage on, say a USB device? Fourthly, if you call your vendor, if you're not capable of sorting that issue out by yourself, and you call your vendor, who's going to pay the vendor for their time? What if you're not under AMC after 1 year or under warranty? Then who's going to pay for the vendor's visit? Is the police going to pay for it? Is the stakeholder, the client, going to pay for it? It's actually, again, pretty ambiguous, and the whole notification, so to say, is a little scary because all these points have not been clarified. And that is why we are trying to break it down and see what are the implications for people, not just who are putting the CCTV, but also for the industry as a whole. Now, being a part of the industry, I know a lot of my colleagues were extremely happy and euphoric when this thing was announced, in the hope that, wow, there'll be a lot more business. I was cautiously optimistic, maybe not even that optimistic, because of all these parameters that I have just mentioned. What happens is when notifications like this go out and the promise of big business is floated out, there's a lot of fly-by-night operators who surface seeing the sheer numbers. But more than the numbers, I think what people need to look out for is the quality of the system that you're going to be putting in your premises. Because just putting up a system, like I said, just for compliance, does not necessarily bridge the gap between compliance and efficacy. So that's something everyone is going to have to be very careful about. Coming back to my industry, a lot of people are very euphoric, and I explained these things to them and said, listen, as a vendor, as a system integrator, if you're called upon, say by 20 premises in a day to give footage in various crucial areas of the city for the police, how are you going to manage your manpower? How is that going to work? Who's going to pay for that manpower? So this notification, though a good notification to increase security and safety in the city per se is its good thing, but also has to be looked upon very cautiously. It has to be broken down into its various components, and the right kind of solution needs to be figured out before we jump on it and say, wow, this is great for the industry as well. There's also the question of enforcement and prosecution. Like I said, I don't know how this is going to be enforced, and who's going to be prosecuted in case of non-compliance. Is it going to be the CCTV integrator? What if someone's not taken an AMC? Can the society management be held responsible? As an owner of a shop, can you be held responsible for not having your cameras in place? And what if you genuinely checked it a few days ago and the hard disk failed? Can you be held responsible for not giving the data to the police? Personally, and again, this is my personal opinion, I think the onus lies upon the state, upon the government, upon the municipality or the police to ensure that all public places are properly policed in terms of electronic surveillance as well as manpower. And they are the ones who actually should be putting up the cameras in various roads, societies, etc. They're trying to shift the buck onto the private individuals. And although the initiative, the theory behind the initiative is noble, I personally feel is going to give rise to a lot of ifs, buts, and probably even legal battles later on when the cases become a little more complicated and important and the stakes are higher. So you as a private individual, what you need to do is to ensure that you do your right research, find someone who's not going to scare you into compliance or scare you into putting the most crazy expensive system out there to ensure that the police are happy with you. Whatever system you do decide to put, please ensure that there is some kind of monitoring to ensure the system is working all the time. Otherwise, the purpose is defeated. Like I said, you could employ someone to do it if budgets permit. If budgets don't permit, you might want to go in for an automated software or an automated subscription service that can allow you to check the health of these cameras on a minute by minute or an hourly or daily basis to ensure that the system is actually working when you assume that it is. So take care, and in case there's any queries that you may have for us, that's my email ID. Feel free to reach out to me and shoot your queries across. I will try and help the best I can. I'm once again reminding you, my name is Rohit, Chabria, electronic security specialist, and we always say that you need to make security your priority.